Hi boys and girls, I'm back. This is Grandma Sue. Remember the last time I showed you an apple pie and I said that sometime we would make an apple pie? Well, I have my apron on and this paper says making an apple pie. Very first thing you're going to need to make an apple pie is a recipe. And I got my 2 recipes off of the internet. And you can do that if you have a computer or you have an iPad. You can look up your recipe. And I printed off 2 recipes, one for the crust and another recipe for the apple pie. But when I was growing up, we didn't have the internet and we couldn't look up recipes on the internet and print them off. So what I had when I was growing up is a cookbook. This is called a cookbook. And it teaches you how to cook so many things, and it has what's called an index. And in the index, I looked up something called pastry and pies. And if I look on the next page, it actually has recipes for apple pies. If you didn't have the money to buy a cookbook, or you didn't have, maybe your favorite recipe isn't in the cookbook, but you have a grandpa or grandma or someone in the family that makes something really good, some people have special recipe boxes, and in that special recipe box they have pieces of paper where a special loved one wrote down the recipe and how they made it. So we've got the most important thing if we're going to cook something is we need recipe. And I'm going to move this right now for my next word. And the very next word is a big word. It's called ingredients. In order to make an apple pie, the apple pie I showed you before, I bought at the store. So I walked into the store, I picked out my apple pie, I paid for it, and I came home, and then we could eat the apple pie. But if you're going to make an apple pie, they call it from scratch. That means you make all the ingredients to make the special apple pie. It takes a lot of ingredients, and it's kind of a lot of work. So if someone makes you an apple pie, they probably spent a lot of time doing it. They probably made it with some love, and so make sure that you say thank you and let them know how good it was and how much you appreciate the fact that they made you an apple pie. So as I said, this says ingredients on it. All through the time that you're making the pie, you're going to have to refer back to your recipe. For my pie crust, it says I'm going to need flour, and this is my flour. F-L-O-U-R is the word for flour, not like the flowers in the garden. That's F-L-O-W-E-R. The next ingredient it says is salt, and this is a special kind of pinkish salt, and it's called Himalayan sea salt. I'm going to let you see a little bit how it looks, and that's my salt is in here. The next ingredient it says I'm going to need for my pie is sugar. The word is S-U-G-A-R, sugar. And then it says I'm going to need some butter, and butter usually comes in a box like this. And then you have 4 rectangular shaped sections for your butter. So this is my butter. And it also says I'm going to need some pork lard. Where would pork lard come from? Pork means that it came from a pig, and lard is the fatty part from the pig. And when you take a pig in to get it made into your meat, then this is the lard. So right here it says lard, L-A-R-D, and lard is sort of like butter. It's white. And so that will also be used in our pie crust. And I dropped my paper. The next thing it says is I need vinegar. Some vinegar is clear like water. This one is a brownish color because this is apple cider vinegar. If you smell vinegar, it's got kind of a strong smell, kind of an interesting smell. You can use white vinegar or you can use this brown one, the apple cider vinegar. It says I'm going to need ice water, and this ice had an ice cube in it, and so it's cold because it needs to be cold water. And then I also need, that's all I need actually for the pie crust. Then we're going to go on to the actual inside of the pie, which is the apple pie filling. For the apple pie filling, of course, we're going to need apples. And I'm going to use some green apples and some red apples. We're going to need a little bit more butter. We're going to need some flour, some sugar, and we're also going to need some spices. This is an interesting spice, kind of another long word. This one is ginger, this one is nutmeg, and the one I said is sort of a long word is cinnamon. When I was a child, I kind of had a hard time saying that big word, cinnamon. So those are the ingredients that we're going to need to make the inside of the pie. But we also, sometimes when I'm making a pie, I use, this is called a sifter, and I put my flour in here, and it makes the flour softer. You're also going to need a pie pan. When you measure these ingredients, these are measuring cups. So I have a 1 cup, a 1/2 cup, a 1/3 cup, a 1/4 cup. And these are measuring spoons. This bigger one is a tablespoon, a 1/2 tablespoon, a teaspoon, a 1/2 teaspoon, a 1/4 teaspoon, and an 1/8 of a teaspoon is really small. And once I get that pie crust all ready, I'm going to be using this, is a rolling pin. So basically those are all the ingredients we're going to need, and I'm going to be back in just a minute, and then we'll put the rest of our pie together.